Hello, and thank you for joining Paper Crafting with Tracey. I really appreciate you watching my videos. Today I'm going to do a vellum technique. So it's kind of a vellum overlay card, just like this. And it uses some embossing as well. So the first thing we're going to start with is a piece of basic white cardstock. And I've already cut it, and it's 7.5 by 4.5. So a little bit smaller than the normal card size that we would make, and that is because I'm going to take a piece of vellum as well. And this is a little bit heavier vellum. Stampin' Up! Has it in these 8.5 by 11. So I've just cut the vellum at the 5.5 by 8.5. And I'm just going to fold this in half. It doesn't work so well to score the vellum to get your nice even score line, because if you're not careful you can actually cut your vellum in half. I've done that on occasion, so we'll just do that. I could use my bone folder as well, but that gives me a crisp enough line. Vellum's not that hard. And what's going to happen, and I've scored this basic white at the 3 3/4 mark so that I can just fold that. And then we're going to be placing it on the inside, like so. But before I do that, before I tape it down, I need to stamp my image on my basic white. So I'll just open it up. And today I'm going to be using the Hydrangea Haven stamp set, because I wanted a stamp set that had the 2-step stamping, so that on the inside of the card I could do both the 2-step stamping, but then on the outside I could take the outline image and emboss it. So we're going to start with taking the outline image of the hydrangea. And I'm going to start with just some granite, or gray granite, because I want it to show enough, but I don't want it to be overpowering. So I'll just ink up this. All right. And now I'm going to have it so that it comes a little bit off the page, and that's okay, because when I do my embossing afterwards, it might extend a little bit more. Okay, so we'll put that on there. And that's all there is to that one. No, it was a little heavier down at the bottom there, but that's okay, because we're going to add to it. So with this stamp set, to fill in, okay, we've got these images here. So this is the one to fill in for the flowers. So we'll just put that on there. And I'm going to use Flirty Flamingo. However, when I'm doing this, I don't want the full effects, because I don't want it to be so overpowering on the card. So I will ink it up. And you can kind of look at that, see how it's doing. Then I'm going to off stamp. And then I'm going to stick it over my flowers, just to tone it down a tiny bit. There we go. And it's okay that it's splotchy in spots, because that's just the way the stamp goes. And now I'll trade that stamp out for the leaves and the stem. Just place that on there, and I'm going to do that in Granny Apple Green. Again, I wanted a very vibrant color, but again, I'm going to off stamp it. So we'll make sure that's inked up, off stamp, and now I'll stick that on there. There we go. So that's all the color stamping that I'm going to do. So I'll just stick those aside. And now we're going to get, I just need to get my cleaning tool here to clean off the outline. So I've just got my chamois, and we'll just clean it off, because I'm going to be using vellum for it. Or sorry, the Versamark. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to line this up in your vellum. Like so. And get it all positioned where you want it. You could get away with putting it in there right now, but I'm not going to because the stamp goes over a little bit and I don't want it to have an edge in it. So I'm happy with where that's placed. So now I'm going to ink up this outline image again with my Versamark. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure I get my white embossing powder ready. And before I ink, you're going to take your little embossing buddy and really wipe over there, because vellum will be quite staticky, and that helps to reduce the static. So really ink up your image. And now you're going to line it up. And that's the handy part about using an outline stamp, because then you can see right through as to where it's going to be. Okay, get nice even pressure. And you could hear that was pretty sticky. So, and you won't be able to see it yet, the image. But once I apply this white embossing powder, you can see it's starting to appear now. Make sure I get all over it. There we go. So I'll move my embossing powder away, and now I'm going to get my heat gun. And I want to make sure it's quite hot before I bring it to the vellum. So I'll just heat it up away from my sheet first. And then I'll bring it by in kind of swooping motions just to try and prevent some of the curling or the warping of the vellum. And there we go, it's starting to change now. Again, I don't want it to get too hot. There we go. Oh, I can see where I missed a spot, but that's okay because I'm going to be inking it up again. So I'm going to take my sentiment, You Make Me Smile, and I'm going to do that in black Memento ink because I don't have any black embossing powder. And you can make any color, an embossing color, by just stamping in that color and using clear embossing powder. So I'll just get my embossing powder because you want to be fairly quick with this so that the ink doesn't dry. So we'll just make sure I get really good ink on there. Just make sure everything's kind of lined up where I want it. Now be very careful when you're stamping on the vellum because it can smudge a bit because it's kind of slippery. There we go. We'll put some clear embossing powder on that. Oh, and I can see where I must have got some on my fingers. And now I will continue to heat emboss this. I'll just see if that little black spot will come off. And it doesn't, but that's okay. So I'll get my heat gun out. And you can see that it'll just, when you put the clear on there, it kind of dulls the ink. And then when you heat it, it comes back to a vibrant color. It actually makes it more shiny. There we go. So we've done all the embossing. Now it's just time to attach this to the card. Let's get that black ink out of the way so that I don't get it on any more of my fingers and stuff like that. So I will get my Stampin' Seal Plus here, and I'll just tape up the back of the card. Now I found it easier if you kind of opened it a little bit and then lined this up. Kind of got it in the corners there. Lined it up where I wanted it to be. And then laid it down flat. Like so. And that's how you get that technique. So that when you open it up, there's your stamped image and there's your card. Now, unfortunately, on the back you can see a little bit of the tape. Not so much with the Stampin' Seal. But if that bothers you, you could take a piece of cardstock, the same dimensions as this, which is 3 3/4 by 4 1/2, and you could just tape that onto the outside. So I did that with this one here. Okay, and to finish off this card, I'm just going to get some embellishments. So with the hydrangea suite, there was these pastel pearls. This is what they look like. There's 4 different colors. So I've got some extra here, so I'll just place those on my card where I want them. Oops. And there we have it. A simple vellum overlay card. So I hope you've enjoyed this video with Paper Crafting with Tracey. Please subscribe to the video so that you can stay up to date on more tutorials, and happy stamping!